Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little interesting guy right here. This is the Kizer Mini Sheepdog C01C. First off though, full disclosure, this guy was sent to me directly by Kizer. I told them I'd talk about the good, the great, the bad, the ugly. It might be a gem, it might be junk, and they still sent it along. So thank you very much to that Kizer. I've done my best here not to let that affect my review, but we do have to assume it's the very best quality controlled one of these that's ever been made. So there you go. Full disclosure, next thing, size comparison. This is a small knife, all told. You can see here it is against your Spyderco Delica. Here it is against your Ontario Rat number 2. Why the heck not? Here it is against another knife I was reviewing recently with a very similar blade shape. This right here is the CRKT Pilar. This is the original, the mini size here. And so you can see that although they've got a very similar sort of idea, the grips are done very differently, and that turns out to be consequential. Next thing, this is, like I said, the Mini Sheepdog. I already reviewed its big brother, the regular Sheepdog C01C, but this is a smaller version. So a Mini Sheepdog, as my buddy Tyler said, is a lamb puppy. So let's go on ahead and put this, and it's by Sheepdog Knives, which is how it got its name. It doesn't look like a sheepdog, and as far as I'm aware, a sheepdog would not be a good user for this because sheepdogs lack opposable thumbs. So anyways, there you go. We're going to go on ahead and make this a quick review because it's got some good, but it's also got some ugly. And yeah, so anyways, let's jump into what I like, what I don't like about this little guy right here. So on the good side, this is a very nice little legal size. This guy comes in right under 2.75 inches, which means that pretty much most jurisdictions this is going to be okay in, so long as you can do things like locking knives, flippers, etc. So that's good. It's also pretty nice to carry. This guy, the big one, full size, was gigantic. It was freaking huge. And in the pocket, that is. This guy is a little bigger in the pocket. I mean, we can compare it here to the Delica. It's a beefy one at some level, especially at the top here, but it's also not so bad, so it carries all right. That's a nice thing. Next thing, I do like the cutouts here. I think it makes it kind of interesting, adds a little bit of visual shock to the design. Next thing, the clip on this guy works well. It's a relatively deep carry clip, and it actually does have a fair amount of spring. It looks sort of big and thick and amorphous, but it works quite well as a clip. Next thing, build quality on this is solid, good to go. No real complaints out of this one. You know, get things like a lock bar insert, etc. That's good. Next thing, this guy has a very nice action. You can see here, get the grip right, it fires out 100% reliably. Nice, strong, clicky detent here. No complaints about the action. Next thing, this guy is actually, and this is a little unusual for Kizer, but I gather it's a good selling model. So, yeah, they offer this guy with a Damasteel blade. For $300, upgraded from the 169 that this guy is now. 170. Why would I say 169? That's ridiculous. Anyways, upgraded from the $170. Whoops. Guess they need some jimping on the flipper tab there. Anyways, you can get up to $300, and then you get to a Damasteel blade. So if you're really loving this knife, there is that prestige version of it. And frankly, I like that a lot. I think that's something I'd like to see from more makers in production knives. You make a regular version of something, and then a nicer version with upgraded materials is a love letter to the model. Love seeing that. Then finally, the thing I like most about this guy, the thing that would be a great if this was a full review, is the blade. And more specifically, look at this freaking grind. So this blade is made of S35VN steel, which is a great steel, no problem. But it comes to a very, very thin edge there. It doesn't start off so crazy thick. The original one was a little bit on the thick side. But more specifically, this guy is ground really well. Kizer's been doing some pretty impressive grinds lately. The Beg Lighter Titanium, then this guy, I'm pretty happy seeing the thinness of the edges they're putting out. That's great. And so to me, that's my favorite part of the knife by a mile, is actually the blade, and more specifically, the cutting power of the blade. Everything else is paling a little bit in comparison. So to me, all that is the good. It's got a very nice blade with a great grind, nice action. They have a Damasteel version if you love the design. It has good build quality. I like the cutouts a lot, and it is a nice legal size. Unfortunately, it is not all rainbows and unicorns, in that there is some bad here. I mean, to start with, one thing I'll address is the price. I think the price is very neutral. $170 is fine. I think that it's a reasonable for what you're getting here for the grind, etc. I got no issues there. It could be a little bit stronger, but hey, whatever, that's fine. That's not too bad. But as we move on to the other bad, there are some other issues here. One thing is that this has a very strong detent. It has a very prominent detent ball, but what this means is that you badly want a detent ramp on this guy. There have been a couple of times where I've kind of hung up on that detent, especially if you're trying to do this and you have any pressure whatsoever on the lock bar. That can get a little bit ugly. So I would like to see a detent ramp going forward on something like this. Next thing, this flipper tab. Although, you know, certainly it's kind of a trademark, I think, for this design, this big round blocky thing. At some level, it doesn't make all that crazy much sense. It's nice in that it's a relatively sort of benign pocket pecker, and it's also hidden mostly by the carry angle here, so that's not a big deal. But I would like to see a little texturing on this front face, because a number of times I've slipped right off of this guy. And given that I have trouble getting a good grip on this thing anyways, anything you can do to help that would be good. Next thing, this guy, unfortunately, this is a weird blade shape and a weird blade in general. I didn't care for it as much. Look, I'm a fan of weird blades where justified. I mean, you're talking to a guy who will carry something like this. This is the Graham Razel GT, that is, with an extra sharpened front edge on there, and this guy is not sharp on the front. That's worth highlighting there, because that can be, you know, weird legally in some areas, but nevertheless, this blade shape, though, I don't quite know. It doesn't do all that much for me, because with the high flipper tab here, you can't, for instance, get down on a cutting board with anything, you know, up to here and back. So that's not great. Honestly, I don't quite understand what this blade shape is winning us. It looks cool, and it gets to a very thin edge. That's nice, but it doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense to me. So this may be something that's purely aesthetic. People are going to look at this and go, wow, that's amazing, and just do it anyways. But for me, utilitarian-wise, I don't know. I like a one cliff, but why does it need to be so tall? Well, it needs to be so tall because the stock is real. I don't freaking know. Look, this is a weird blade shape. Only you're going to be able to make that call. The thing, though, the biggest problem with this knife, the third in this knife's punch bowl, is the ergonomics for me. I just can't hold this knife effectively, because it is a very, very small knife. And look, I like small knives. I have zero problem with small knives, but this is a weird small knife. In that, take a look at the handle here. You are getting on this guy approximately 2.75 inches of grip area. Now, that's not a whole lot. I have smaller hands than most, but even I have this weird, awkward, like, 3-finger grip on this guy, but more so, what's weird about it is it's a very narrow grip. Because of the way this guy is constructed, with a lot of blades sticking up the top, there's really just not that much to grab onto here. And similarly, flipping this guy out, generally speaking, when you flip a knife, here we go, we'll use this guy. This is the Apurvis Blades Progeny, which is, by the way, not a much larger knife. In the grand scheme of things, I mean, the blade is certainly longer, but, you know, it's not all that much larger in terms of carrying than this guy is. But when you normally flip a knife, what you do is you generally brace the back end of the knife against your palm here, and then use the flipper tab to pull back, and that allows you to pop this guy out, no freaking problem. Unfortunately, with this guy, that's just not possible, because in order to get to this flipper tab, you need to have it you need to have your finger pretty far forward, and because it just doesn't really work in that configuration. So you find yourself gripping really hard on both sides here and then pulling it out. But the problem is when you grip very hard, that increases the detent strength further, which makes it just problematic. So I'm sure I would get past this. After a long enough time carrying this, I would be able to get by, but ergonomically speaking, there's just no really good way for this knife to be in my hand. Like, every time I use it, it's just like, and then for some reason, the weight distribution is very strange, having all the blade down here. I just don't care for it in the hand. And this is very personal. I actually handed this knife to my wife as well, and I said, you know, dearest wife, what do you think about this knife? She said, oh, God, I can't get... this was unprompted. I said, oh, God, I can't get a good grip on it. It's so weird. And she's got, you know, relatively small hands as well. So maybe this is a rare knife where if you are like the Incredible freaking Hulk and you have like a one-finger grip on this guy because your fingers are the size of freaking, you know, Polish sausages or something, then maybe you're going to love this guy. But for me, I just have no ergonomic purchase on this, and as a result, that's really unfortunate. And one of the other things that I think makes that problematic is that a lot of knives on the smaller end tend to do things like having a finger choil that allow you to kind of get a better grasp on it. I've still got a full 4-finger grip on this guy. But for some reason, this just doesn't work for me ergonomically at all. And I don't get it. I don't know why that's the case, but it's just deeply the case. And so as a result, carrying this knife drove me freaking nuts, because every time I pulled it out, it was just like, oh, no. So to me, that's what's bad here, is the ergonomics are just brutally bad for me. I don't see the utility here in the blade shape, and frankly, the overall design. I mean, it looks cool. Maybe that's what it's supposed to do, but yeah. The flipper tab definitely needs some texturing no matter what. It could use a detent ramp, and the price is neutral. It's okay. Final conclusions here. You know, look, I generally support companies making a variety of sizes in their popular models, and this is certainly a popular model for Kizer, so I can see them doing it. It's got some nice elements. It's got a good action, compact size, overall good execution, great blade, but then unfortunately for me, it's got some issues. It needs maybe a little bit of texture on that tab. It's got a detent ramp need, and it needs a whole bunch of ergonomic work, and at least for my hands. And given I'm just one jackass, remember, go check other people's reviews too. If they're having ergo issues, then believe them too. But, you know, otherwise maybe I'm just crazy. But even with all that, it's also a very niche knife, I feel like. There is going to be a market for this knife, and it's not going to be universal, so to speak. So, you know, my final conclusion here is if you're absolutely head over freaking heels in love with this design, then go someplace you can try one out in hand. That's easier said than done in a world where local knife stores are increasingly disappearing and where companies like Kizer may not be carried at them anyways. But still, that would go a long way, or order from someplace where you can make that return if you need to. Because I feel like, for me at the very least, this was a knife that was certainly appealing to the eye. Well, okay. It was appealing in the sense of, oh, okay, I'll give it a shot. Then I got it in hand, and within 10 seconds, just like, whoa, nope. And so, you know, at least for me, the moment I picked this guy up, I knew that this little sheepdog would not be joining my flock. And so, it's probably a good idea for you to be able to figure that one out on your own as well. So anyways, there you go. I hope this has been interesting, and I will C01C you all later. Okay. Have a good one, everybody. Bye now.